G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well today. So today we're going to be having a look at the F9F-8 Cougar, which is a rank 6 American jet fighter that sits at a battle rating of 8.3 for simulator battles. Now, it's an aircraft that's been in the game for a long time, and it's had a couple of changes, most notably the fact that it now gets its 4 AIM-9B sidewinder missiles. She's not the fastest or the most maneuverable aircraft at her tier, although her max speed of 1,056 kilometers an hour with these missiles is nothing to sniff at. If you want to have a closer look, she does have some loadout options. It's not a huge amount. You can get your 4 air-to-airs, you can get 4 500-pound bombs, or 2 1,000-pound bombs. So she does have some close air support capabilities. Might be worth taking into ground battles, especially with those 1,000-pound bombs, but there are, of course, much better close air support options at this tier. So what is the F9F-8 good for? Well, I'll tell you, it is a good support aircraft for other aircraft. It's good air support. It was not designed to be an air superiority fighter. There were other aircraft designed for that. As such, this is not the best dogfighter at its tier at all. There are a lot of aircraft that will outfight it. However, it is pretty forgiving when it comes to defensive maneuvers, and if you're nice and quick and clever with your air brakes, you can definitely get some sneaky overshoots and some easy kills as well. What it does have going for it, of course, is pretty overwhelming armament for its battle rating. It has 4 20mm M3 cannons. They have 760 rounds of ammunition between them, and you've of course got your 4 AIM-9Bs. Now, the cannons are all nose-mounted, which is excellent and what you want to see, which is obviously the case with most jets as well. Makes accuracy a lot easier, makes pulling off tail shots excellent, makes deflection shots excellent, and it has a radio rangefinder with its gyroscopic sight, so it's good for leading targets. The pilot gets a moderate amount of protection. It gets 8.5 mils of steel behind them. They've got bulletproof glass, and they've got 9.5 mils of steel in front where the feet are. So, you know, it can tank a few hits. In fact, it is quite a beefy aircraft in general, at least I've found when flying it out. Now, things to worry about when you're taking this particular aircraft out, MiGs. MiG-15, MiG-17, they are quite twitchy and will outturn you. So with those, you will either need to engage with a significant energy advantage, get it over quickly. You either then need to sneak up on them and shove a missile up their backside, or you are fighting defensively, and you are literally fighting defensively. This thing's got very good air brakes because it is a naval fighter. It needs to slow down quickly sometimes, so use those to your advantage whenever possible. But what we'll do, we'll take this out into a couple of games that I'll show you now. Now, with this being a 8.3 fighter, we are going to be in the Enduring Confrontation 6 bracket. Now, the match quality at this tier is quite lackluster in Sim at the moment, at least for my time zone anyway. It's very difficult to get a game as America because America is so popular at this tier. So I usually have to take any games that I get. Sometimes it's a game with nothing but bombers in it, sometimes it's a game with fighters. It's a real mixed bag. Nothing wrong with either particular one, it just, the type of the gameplay, I sort of want to get more action shots for these sort of videos to, you know, demonstrate how this thing actually works in full air-to-air engagements. But enough waffling from me, we'll hop into the 2 games that I've already recorded here, and I will run you through how this thing handles. So the first game was a tier 6 game over Zhengzhou. It was a pretty historically balanced game. It was pretty much an American team against a Russian and Chinese team on the other side, so, you know, mostly US aircraft versus MiGs and the like, so target identification is definitely not going to be an issue with this particular game. Now, as soon as we were off the ground, the action essentially started. There was a dogfight within a couple of clicks of the airfield that we took off from, and 2 of our allies, I believe both were in F-84s, were in quite a bit of strife. So we enter and render assistance. Now, there were 2 enemies engaged. There was a Yak-30, I believe, and a MiG-9. Now, the MiG-9 was the one that was actually giving the more trouble than the two. MiG-9's severely outclassed at this tier, but it does have one thing going for it, which is it is incredibly maneuverable, and it managed to unfortunately lure one of our friends here into a turn fight, which it really shouldn't have done. And we were able to get up and over here and squeeze up a couple of very lucky hits, and we clipped the end of his wing and sent him into the river. I was honestly incredibly surprised that I managed to land those shots. I was just sort of squeezing those off more as a parting gesture than anything else. Now, not too long after we took him out, we also came across an IL-28, which is a completely different foe altogether. Now, the golden rule, as always with IL-28s, if you have missiles, use them over cannons because their rear-mounted guns are incredibly spicy. And by spicy, I mean their 23mm rounds will annihilate you. Now, we were engaging this along with a friendly, however, they had taken some time and hadn't yet taken them out, so I thought, you know what, I'll go in and secure this. I fired the missile, and it doesn't exactly track very well. I'm not too sure whether or not the IL-28 was pulling too many Gs or whatever, but it just didn't track. I pulled up just in the nick of time, though, because he bombed that mini base. The bombs critically damaged the fighter that was at the same altitude as me and killed him. So had we not pulled up, then we would have also been eating the dirt, so to speak. Now, as I said at the start of the video, the F9F-8 isn't the best dogfighter at this tier, so all of my engagements in this video are basically all going to be attacks of opportunity. I'm looking for enemies that are already engaged, like this MiG here. He is in a vertical zoom climb to get up and over an opponent. I've followed him up, caught him at low energy, and taken his wing off. These are the sort of things that you should be doing in the Cougar. You don't want to be going into direct one-on-one engagements, because a majority of the time you are going to be outmaneuvered by your opponent, particularly if they're in a MiG, like a MiG-15 or a MiG-17. Those things will just about outturn you, but the more important thing is they have got significantly more power than you do, so they'll be able to out-climb and out-accelerate you, which is something you really don't want to be in that kind of situation. Now, here we have found our friend in the, well, I should say our enemy in the MiG-9 again, who is once again harassing a fellow F-84, and we're slotting in for the chase now. We don't get there just in time to save our friend. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what happened here. As you're about to see, he ends up going into the forest here, and I'm not too sure whether or not that was just a maneuver kill on the MiG's part, whether there was some damage, but the MiG didn't get credited the kill for the F-84 that crashed into the ground. We had a couple of shots at him, however he was a bit squirrely, and even with some pretty strong applications of the rudder we weren't able to get our shots to line up, although this does look certainly quite a bit more promising here. Now, with the F9F-8, you do get the radio rangefinder with this, which adjusts your gyroscopic sight. So if you don't know what that is, basically there's a little rangefinder in the nose that's based off pinging. It's like a rudimentary radar, basically, and your enemy's distance gets calculated into the gun sight. Now, it isn't like having a lead indicator, but it definitely helps to judge roughly where you need to shoot, and it helps us out here, and we secure another kill with that MiG-9. Now, the radio rangefinder is found mostly on American jets at this tier. It is very useful for coming into bombers, doing, you know, side strafes on heavy bombers and things like that, because it'll help you judge your deflection a lot better, like where you're going to be aiming your deflection shots. Now, after that particular engagement, the game did quieten down for a bit until an A point popped up, which dragged a whole bunch of us quite close to the one of the enemy airfields. And we ended up in a multi-aircraft engagement here. Now, we did take the attack of opportunity with this one. This, I believe MiG-15 or LA-200 was engaged with another F9F-8. However, when we engage him here, the other Cougar is nowhere to be seen. I don't know if he got shot down or if he just bugged out of the fight due to damage. However, we go with the guns on this one. Now, I do have my missile arm, but I decide not to take the shot. because it was a relatively easy gun kill and I didn't want to waste an aim-9. I'd much rather save my aim-9s for targets where I feel they're a lot more necessary, like heavy bombers, IL-28s with guns at the back, or severely more powerful fighters like MiG-17s, other, like, 9.3 top tier fighters at this BR rank. Anything lower than that I don't consider a priority missile target unless they are literally a sitting duck and just outside of gun range. Speaking of gun range, we are in gun range here and I think about firing off a missile. However, this particular opponent is pulling some Gs and I have concerns that the missile won't be able to safely track. So I decide to disregard using that and we're just going to use the guns instead. And we take off its wing quite easily here. And once again, that was another attack of opportunity. That aircraft was busy dealing with one of our friends and so we dealt with them. Now, not long after that, the game went completely dead. Most of the enemy team left, and most of the friendly team left as well, which is a real shame. We were starting to get some really good dogfights with this one. I stuck around for another 10-15 minutes just shooting a couple of bots, but after that I realized there wasn't much else happening here, so I landed, got my rewards, and jumped into a Tunisia game, which is an incredibly common sight in Enduring Confrontation 6. It's a very popular map, it's very bomber friendly because the airfields are close together, so if you're the kind of person that likes to use a bomber to unlock stuff and grind stuff, Tunisia is the map to go to. And for me, it's also a very target-rich environment, and this is the kind of place where the F9 Cougar can really shine, because it is great at intercepting bombers and attackers. That is honestly the thing you should use it for above fighter-on-fighter engagements. Now, speaking of fighter-on-fighter, we are technically engaging a fighter here, but it is an F-84 with ordnance and with lots of oil leaking out of it, so instead of wasting a missile, I'll decide to get nice and close here and use my guns, and miss with 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 my guns, and then hit with my guns, and have nothing happen, hit with my guns again, nothing happen. There's a lot of sparks. I eventually knock him out of the sky, but good lord, that was a lot of 20 mil I put into the back of that aircraft. It should have exploded by that point. Our next victim happened to be a Canberra, because of course this was a completely mixed game. It was all nations against all nations. Can be annoying, can be fun. It all depends on what kind of match you get. It's very mixed bag. So we squeeze off an aim-9 to blow him out of the sky before he bombs the mini base and takes out some more points. Now, speaking of mini bases and bombers, there was a Ju-288 in this game. Now, amazingly, you can get missile lock on propeller plane bombers. You have to get incredibly close, and I took a huge risk with the defensive guns on that particular bomber, but I just wanted to get it with a missile just to giggle. And that basically set the tone for this particular game. The next 30 minutes was essentially me just flying around hunting down Canberras, IL-28s, Halifaxes, Ju-288. So I was getting a lot of gun practice, and I was using quite a few missiles as well. I had to land and rearm quite a few times between the last couple of clips. But eventually things started changing and things got a little bit amusing for a time. So somebody on our team was flying in a B-17 and was asking for an escort. And I thought, you know what? I'm not doing anything else in my time. Let's use the F9 as its intended purpose as a sort of escort and support fighter. Unfortunately, I was too busy watching the B-17 doing aerobatic loops to notice a MiG-17 coming on my tail, and he promptly blew me out of the sky. That was a complete mistake on my part, and I completely take the blame for that. I should have been watching my 6 a lot more closely. Thankfully, it's only a 5-minute respawn timer for the F9F-8 being 8.3 on the battle rating, and once we got back into the sky, we saw a friendly being chased down by a Japanese Sabre. Now, the Japanese Sabre, I'm assuming at this point, didn't have any missiles left, or it wasn't the premium one, but I believe there was only the premium Sabre for Japan, correct me if I'm wrong. So I thought, well, if he doesn't have missiles, I certainly have missiles, and I'm going to send one right towards him and save my friend, which is exactly what we do here. Pretty much the easiest fighter-on-fighter kill of that entire game, actually. They were very much focusing on the friendly, and we were very much focusing on them. And after that, it was basically a case of back to hunting down IL-28s and Canberras, which is what the rest of the game ended up devolving into. We still lost, unfortunately. We did push for the objectives, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough, and the numbers of the enemy team won out. Now, those two matches for me were both pretty disappointing in terms of actual combat and excitement. You know, I got a lot of kills and I scored a lot of points and I got a lot of research in Silver Lions, but it wasn't hugely fun. I wish I had a game much like one I had the other day on Rua, where it was definitely a bit more exciting. And to show you what I mean, I'm going to give you a clip of one of the most fun dogfights I've had in recent memory. So this was from about a week ago on Rua, EC6 of course. I'm currently in the process of locking and then sending a missile towards an enemy H5 bomber, completely unaware that two enemies are zeroing in on me with extreme speed and prejudice. I of course become aware of this very quickly as one passes in front of me, and I am suddenly alerted to the fact that yes, there is indeed something trying to kill me. So I immediately go into pursuit of this one, not realizing that they also had a friend or three in tow. Now this was a 4-on-1 engagement that very quickly became a 2-on-1 engagement, as you will see here. Now that quick engagement was some of the most fun I've had with American jets in a very long time. Unfortunately, I said at the beginning this was a 4-on-1 engagement, and it is now a 2-on-1 engagement, and one that I am sadly going to lose because although those 2 kills were nice, they robbed me of all energy to use in defensive maneuvers, and not too long after this I get blown out of the sky by their friend coming in here. I offer them a good deflection shot, and I fall out of the sky. But, for what it's worth, I thought the Cougar did pretty well in that dogfight. Pretty bad odds, 4 against 1. If I could take 2 of them down, I'm happy. So yeah, that's the Cougar. Not the best dogfighter in the world, but if handled correctly, she can still save you bacon when she needs to. At the end of the day, I think the best role for this is air defense in a game. If you're in a game when you're fighting a lot of people in attackers and bombers in EC6, this is a great counter. It's 8.3, so it only has a 5-minute timer. You've got 4 AIM-9Bs, and you've got 4 cannons. And the maneuverability penalty that you get from having those missiles equipped is going to affect you less if you're engaging bombers and attackers rather than dedicated air superiority fighters. So I think it is a great role for that. If you're looking to do more so just straight on fighter engagements, take out a Sabre or take out an F11F1 instead, I would say. It is of course a higher battle rating, being 9.0. However, it is definitely going to do quite a bit better than this in a regular dogfight. But hey, if you're good at sim and you know how to treat this thing well, it can still pull off some pretty good victories. So that's my video today on the F9F-8. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more sim goodness. But that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.